Well, hello YouTube, this is Lat123. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Thomas the Tank Engine wooden Brio toy train system. It's a very old system now, but still running today with newer trains. This is what I grew up with, and I hope you enjoy, guys. What better way to start than by looking at James? James was one of my favourite locos as a child. As you can see, he's got quite a lot of detail on him for something of his age. Something built in the early 2000s. His tender easily comes off just with that coupling there, all magnets. The tender isn't exactly accurate, but the coal's pretty good, I always thought. The coal looks pretty realistic. Turning it over, there's nothing written on any of these. Some of the later ones do have the writing of what the character is on them. Going back to James, you can just sort of see the face is pretty good, pretty accurate to what you saw in the show. Body's a little bit out of proportion, in my opinion, to what I used to think of James, but you know, it's a toy at the end of the day. All wooden other than the wheels and the face. Looking underneath James, you can't see any licensing info that is obvious. All you can really see looking at him is that massive magnet sticking out the front. Obviously, the more modern stuff has moved on from that, but I think it's time to move on. And this is Diesel 40, I believe he's called. Class 40 is obviously the actual real loco. Very weird face on this one, as you see me drop it there. Very, very strange face. I never really understood that. Very interesting bogey system as well. As you can see, I can pivot both of those bogies, and there's almost two like metal clip things stopping you from being able to turn them all the way around. Never really understood that feature, why they didn't want you to turn them all the way around. You could easily sort that out with a pair of pliers if you were really that way inclined. Plenty of detail on this one though, probably better than James for detail, especially when you consider they're very much the same era, only a few years probably between them. Looking at that on the front of him as well, you can see that massive magnet that I was telling you about again, but that's pretty much it for him. Now we're going to move on to everybody's favourite breakdown wagon, that is Toad, and obviously Toad has plenty of detail on him. He's one of the favourites of many people. Everybody knows the story of Toad. He's a pretty good one. I always used to play with this one a lot. Used to reenact the episode where he goes running down the hill at full pelt. He's very, very reminiscent of an old-fashioned brake wagon, which is what I like. When you flip the wheels around on him, you can see some licensing info in there. Can't quite remember off the top of my head what the date was. I think it was about the year 2000. All of these toys are very, very freewheeling and very, very good. But the main flaw with Toad, I'm going to show you here, is that he couldn't couple up as well this way. It's a shame that these toys did not use smart magnets. He could only ever be pulled backwards, which is realistic to the story, but just not all that exciting. This is Toby now, so moving on to some of the sort of locos that everybody knows from the toy franchise. Toby is another good model. He was licensed to the year 2000. I always really liked Toby. As you can see by the top of him, there's plenty of chip work off the paint. But his face has certainly become quite wobbly over the years. I don't know what's happened there. Looks like he's had a few drinks or something. But Toby had that whacking great magnet sticking out of the front of him as well. They've certainly improved on that since then. And there's that chipping that I was telling you about just a few seconds ago. Toby does have two big magnetic rods sticking out the top of him. I'm not sure what that's all about, whether that's just bolting him together. Looking back, probably that's what that was. I did actually look at getting a proper model of Toby for my layout, but I think he's a J70. There's a company that makes them, but they're about £120 odd, so that's just far too much money for me. Personally, at the moment, maybe they will come down, who knows. But a lot of plastic on this one. Now we're moving on to one called McDuck. I've never really remember McDuck in the series. He's based after Evening Star as his actual loco. Definitely the most plasticky one of the lot. His face, is that really like the one from the TV series? I don't remember him, so someone's going to have to help me out in the comments section with that. This is where we start to see the names come into fruition on the bottom of him, but all of that running board is plastic, would you believe? I'm just flipping the wheels around to try and get a date. I think he was about 2003. So quite similar to the other ones, but as you can see, I just don't really get why they use so much plastic on this one. Obviously moving away from the wooden, but when does it stop becoming Thomas Wooden? Do you know what I mean? I know the motorised ones are all die-cast. If we have a look again, just round the other side, You can see that I'm going to drop the tender, which is absolutely wonderful, which also says McDuck's Tender on it, which is another nice feature, just giving children a little bit more information about what different parts of trains are. The coal in the top's reasonably realistic, and the tender will only go on that way. Was quite nicely free-wheeled as well. Bit of an interesting bogie system on the bottom of this one that could pivot around corners and on the track. But yeah, like I said, don't remember him at all. Moving on now to some rolling stock. Look at this. I mean, the Sodor Sea Life stuff. Absolutely love this aquarium car. Probably my favourite bit of rolling stock in the whole of my Wooden Thomas collection. Bit more plastic on the underside of this one again, and these are the year 2003, I believe. So it's amazing how much detail they managed to put into something so small. Looking at the wheels there, you can see it does say underneath there 2003 somewhere on there. I don't think the camera's going to pick it up. Looking at it from the side on, that shark is absolutely unbelievably detailed in there. I do think there was more water in these when I got them originally. There you can see the octopus, which is just about surviving in that little pool of water. This is me trying to get it into the middle of the camera shot there so you can actually see it. Very difficult. I just resort to tapping it on the end in the end of the video there, but you can see it is still nicely detailed for something of its time, and the more modern ones do have little lights in the top so you can light up the sea life creatures, but these really look their best when they're being pulled along by a loco. Doesn't that look brilliant? Now we move on to just some standard little wagons. I always quite liked these were quite a fun piece. As you can see on the top there, they've got actual crosshead screws, which is a bit interesting. Nothing else has had that so far. Look in here, we've got two little bits of cargo as well, two crates that can go in those, and they sit quite comfortably in there. They're quite secure as well, so they're not going to flop out. Look, I can hold it upside down and look at the licensing info, and they don't easily slide out. They're quite secure. They both couple up nicely as well. On the sides as well, you can see they are actually plastic, so plenty of plastic in these again. So when does it stop becoming Thomas Wooden and Thomas Plastic? On the top of these, we do have little magnets, and I'll show you what they go in up next. And I had to actually move the camera to get this one in shot. This is Cranky. Cranky is a lovely toy. Look at the detail on that face. That is really good. But then again, for somebody who's meant to be cranky, he looks rather cheery almost. On these sides you can see there are two handles. One operates the motion of the head, which spins that round, and you can do this nice and slow and make it look like Cranky's patrolling round Sodor, which I always quite admired. I always thought that was quite a nice feature. Doesn't quite do a full 360, gets a little bit stuck on one side. I think that's just the way the toy was made, to be honest, more than anything else. And there you go, now that just explains what that magnet on the top was for, on that cargo. Because Cranky has a magnet, rather than having a claw or a little hook to hook things up on, Cranky has a magnet. There you see me moving the other handle, that actually brings the arm up and down. Unfortunately though, it doesn't bring it down low enough to actually drop it off directly into the stock, which is a little bit annoying. The wagons are just sort of there and the parcel floats up in the air, and as you can see now, I do try and turn the handle and it just brings it up and then down, up and then down. There's no way of getting it lower than that. What you end up sort of doing is just breaking it off in the end. Looking at the front of Cranky there, you can see there's some wonderful detail on this toy. It's amazing, something of its time, all that riveted detail and those steps. I always admired that, even as a child. There is actually some licensing info on this as well. You can see Brittlecroft Thomas Limited 2000. So for something that's now 20 years old, pretty good, isn't it? Now one of the favourites from the original series, and from a couple of the films as well, Diesel 10. Everybody knows this one, I think. And that face, I mean, that is absolutely wonderful. On the bottom there, you can see we got Diesel 10 written on the bottom. Spin round the wheels, 2003, I believe the licensing info was again on this one. Looking at it, I think it's one of the nicer ones, especially when you look at that face. That looks menacing. Really menacing. And look at that detail running down the side. That is pretty darn impressive for something of its time. The bogie system is different to diesel 40 or class 40 diesel. It doesn't have that clip in the middle, so obviously we're seeing a bit of progression, which does make it look a lot better. If we look at the top, you can see there is a plastic piece just behind where Pinchy sits, and Pinchy is all plastic, and it does lift up slightly. There is some kind of elevation element to Pinchy as well. All made out of plastic, and there's no way of opening it, unfortunately, so you can't actually expect to be picking up anything or grabbing anything, which is a little bit of a shame, but for something of its age, you can only really expect so much, I'm guessing, if you know what I mean. But yeah, just sitting him down there, you can see how menacing he looks. I think he looks rather good, doesn't he? Now we come to Percy, and Percy is one of the, obviously, favourites. Pulls the mail on time, doesn't he, if I remember correctly. Percy is probably the least accurate in terms of size. He's certainly not really looking like Percy. He's almost been to Slimming World or something. He's very thin when you look at him. Spinning around the wheel, there is a date there. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody will be able to tell me in the comments section. Percy has a whacking great magnet sticking out of the front of him as well, which we've seen through most of these so far. Number 6 on the side, obviously Percy's number, his running number. But yeah, Percy is one of the smaller ones, certainly. I'm not really sure what happened with the gauging of Percy, but they just seem to lose their way all of a sudden. I don't know why. But obviously we're about to move on to the main man. And what would the railway be without this guy, Thomas the Tank Engine? This one licensed with Brio written on the back there, 1996. So this one is the best part of 24 years old. I don't know what's gone wrong with my one, but in the middle set of wheels are just sort of loose. They don't really key into the track at all. I don't know whether that was intentional from the manufacturer or what that was, but look at the face on this one. Certainly one of the nicer ones for faces. There's something quite charming about that Botox-looking face on this one. I don't really know what it is, though. It is just quite a nice-looking model, isn't it? Looking at Thomas from a distance, you can easily tell that that is Thomas the Tank Engine. There's no debate about that. I'm not sure about that magnet on the front, whether that was something that I added or whether it come like that. I think from memory it didn't have a magnet on the front, which was always a bit of a pain as a child. In the bottom there you can see we don't have the screws as well, which is a different progression, I suppose. Again, no coal though. Where is Thomas's coal? Was that there originally? Did I take it out? I do not remember. But it just doesn't look right without any plastic coal in the back, does it? Obviously no splash of white on that running board either, so that's another little criticism, but you can't really fault these toys, they are lovely. Now just a very quick look at the track system that these trains use, and this is probably one of the best toy train track systems you will find. Nothing plasticky about this. It keys together really nicely, and there is some give in that track, you can see. And I always found if my layout didn't quite key together, you could stretch the track that little bit just to get the trains around them. And this is a very familiar sight. They always keyed into the track quite well. Just looking again at the piece of track, if I put any pressure on that or try and break it, it is just so tough. You'll see some imitations of this track that just don't have any real strength, and even at that coupling system, which is just sort of like a typical wood joint, there's no weakness whatsoever. I can't actually pull it apart, which is pretty impressive for something of its age. Obviously it does have its flaws. It will not key into your 00 gauge HO track, which is slightly disappointing, because it would have been nice to keep using these, or maybe even motorise them, but there probably is a way of doing it. But Thomas does not want to play ball, so give up with that. And that was a very quick review of just some of my old model trains from my childhood, the Thomas the Tank Engine range of Brio toy trains. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like below. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll catch you guys all on the next video. Please leave a comment with your favourite down below. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, guys.